Hello, Simon. Welcome to JCommerce. I'd like to start with what exactly do you do? What do you do in your career, in your business? What do you currently do?
Okay, fine. So let me give you a bit of an intro
Sure.
to the company itself. So my company is Alphonica, is part of the RCG group, Rose Communication Group. Consists of Rose Communications, RC UK, and Alphonica. Alphonica was born probably about 2 or 3 years ago, where we realized that we needed a different brand, we needed a different recognition from RC UK, which mainly, I suppose, looks after more retail, more, the people off the street rather than the business to business side. The problem we had, or what we noticed, was that companies were a bit reluctant to deal with us, the bigger companies. So when you're talking about bigger sectors, the hospitality sector, things like that, because they had this conception of RCUK being a small shop up some creaky stairs, and we needed to move away from that and create our new brand. And we have done quite successfully over the past 2, 3 years. RCUK, don't get me wrong, on the business to business side was successful and is successful. But the idea was to move everything from the business to Alphonica and keep RCUK as that more retail one-stop shop, and more on the mobile side, while Alphonica deals with phone systems and connectivity, things like that.
That's
So
very
what
interesting.
I yeah, go on, fire away.
No, I was gonna carry on.
Okay, so what do I do? So I head up Alphonica. I came to RCUK, or the RCG group, 12 years ago. I was brought in specifically to build up the B2B, the business to business side. Um, they always had a very strong mobile base, but they never had a strong landline and connectivity and broadband base and things, what businesses really require. So I was brought in to build that up. So we started off dealing with smaller companies whereby we could buy connectivity off them, we could buy phone systems off them. And as we grew, we got in with the bigger boys. So now, we direct with the likes of BT, BTW, BT Wholesale, Openreach, as you know them as. And we direct with the big hosted telephony companies rather than dealing with two or three parties in between. So over those years, we've really grown the B2B side of the business. Alphonica itself, we've probably got, I'm just looking outside of the conference room, we've probably got about 16, 17 people who work under me. And that's growing. In 2022, we added 2 or 3 staff members. 2023, we're looking to build probably another 4 or 5 staff members within the UK, and we are opening an office in South Africa.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah, yeah, in 2023. So that's already in progress. We've already signed the lease of the building. We just need staff. But we're getting there. We're going through the interview process, and it's exciting times.
that's very interesting. So, how much of your role is really sales, and how much of it is more sort of tech related? Making sure things tick over.
Okay, so interesting question. It's an interesting question because when I came into the business 11, 12 years ago, whenever it was, I was like a one-man band. So it was really quite embarrassing. So I would I would make that initial call to a client, and they would know me. So they would get familiar with my voice, they would get familiar with the sales pitch, they would go ahead and said, yes, we want to go ahead, no problem. I would send them the email to sign up the contract. Then, if they needed a phone system installing, I would be running up and down the country installing that phone system. And then, if they needed training the next day, so I would install the phone system 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And they said, oh, yeah, we need staff training. So here's me turning up again, same person, giving the staff training the next day. So, things have progressed quite a bit. We've got our own engineering team who go out and install. Depending on the client, I've got people internally as well who do the training. I still get a buzz out of it. Don't get me wrong. I still like to go down, meet the bigger clients, and give the training. Obviously, I don't do the installations anymore, but from the training side of things, it's very, very satisfying. So my day is probably split between, I would call it technical sales, and managing Alphonica, which in itself is quite a big task, because when you've got 16, 17 staff which you need to manage, you need to make sure that the departments within Alphonica are all ticking over as they should be. So we have our provisioning team, we have our support team, we have our sales team, we have our billing team, we have our admin team. That's my responsibility, to make sure that everything ticks over as it should be, and to make sure that the company is growing as it should be as well.
And in terms of the business as it has developed and evolved, has that been your sort of leadership and responsibility to ensure, to visualize how that was going to be, to strategize, to put it in place, or the other people on that management team on your level?
Yeah, so it's my responsibility as part of the RCG group. We have regular executive meetings. So we'll have, head of mobile or head of RC UK retail, the CEO, head of HR, head of billing. We all do get together. Used to be more often. We used to do it once a month. We do it now every quarter. And we have strategy meetings. So, how can the departments, or how can the different companies within the RCG group benefit from each other? Am I doing something within my side of the business which can benefit the other side of the business by a certain strategy I put in place? Can I gain from somebody else? That's the whole idea. We're always listening. We're always out there looking for different types of products that we think we can add to our portfolio, which is also very important. So for instance, pivoting is like a cool word within the business world. Can you diversify? Can you start selling something else and not look as though you're moving away from your sector? And we do that quite successfully. We go into different sectors, so different verticals as we call it. So whether it's hospitality, we've just taken on a chain of hotels, for example. We've just taken on this year specifically a big chain of restaurants. So 30, 40 restaurants across the UK. They needed brand new connectivity. They needed brand new phone systems. So it ended up being whatever 200 or 300 handsets between all the restaurants and the head offices. So you need to learn how to adapt to the industries that you're serving, because they've all got their own requirements. So, somebody in hospitality in the restaurant industry, for instance, will have a different requirement than somebody sitting, at a desk selling insurance. So you need to make sure you can supply and make sure that your business can support them as much as possible.
And zoning out of the detail of the business, in from the practical side, but from your perspective, how's the experience been? How do you describe the experience as being of all this growth and evolving of your personal position and role, but alongside the business as well?
So I myself have gained quite a lot, a very lot. I'm going to say, when I came in to the business, yes, I had business experience. I would call it low-level managerial experience. But over the years and through not necessarily a business mentor, but the boss, as we call him, the CEO, Maxi Rose. He's a person to look up to. He's phenomenal the way he built his business. It's interesting to know how he built his business, because if you look how he built it, you can see how the success has actually gone through. So a brief background, he basically started to build his telecoms business whilst he was still in Fogal Yeshiva. I think he was 14 or 15. His father is a principal of a yeshiva in Stamford Hill. And he saw maybe that a full day yeshiva wasn't necessarily for his son. But he wanted obviously to keep a bit of an eye on him. The yeshiva itself serviced boys from all over the world. And his father turned around and said, you know what, in the mornings you have your chavrusas, you go to share. Maybe in the afternoons in my office you can start maybe selling phone cards to the boys who need to call home. They need to call back to Israel. They need to call to America. They need to call to Brazil, wherever they might need to call to. So he literally started to sell phone cards out of his father's office in yeshiva, and as they say, the rest is history. He owes a lot to his father. He's got the unbelievable utmost respect for his father. He doesn't do anything without asking his father. And it's, listen, as well as a lesson in business, it's a lesson in chinuch as well. And because of that, he's grown to the person who he is. And if we need anything on a managerial level, or even the day-to-day guys who are working for us, if they want to knock on his door and ask him a question, he's always available. He's not one of these CEOs with his foot on the desk, smoking a cigar and taking everything in. He's very, very much hands-on. And that's what I've learned. I've learned a lot from him because of that. I've learned how to manage teams, how to grow the teams, how to grow the business, how to bring in different products and services because of him.
Did you have a moment in the past 12 years where you thought, this is just too hard, this is not working, I can't do this?
Listen, if anybody who's been in the business world tells you that everything is smooth sailing and everything is absolutely great and fantastic, they're lying. Do we have hard times? Of course we have hard times. Not necessarily from a financial aspect or from business going up or down like a yo-yo. Baruch Hashem, the business is successful, and we hope it will be successful for many, many years to come. I mean, if you do your homework, have a look on Companies House or have a look at one of these credit safe websites, you'll see that Baruch Hashem, over the past 10, 15 years, it's only been going in one direction. Do we have challenges? Of course we have challenges. We have many challenges, whether it's high-end customers who are experiencing terrible issues with their broadband connectivity, and it causes a chain of restaurants to close for 24 hours. And that's all on your head. It comes with stress. Business comes with stress. You just need to know how to deal with it and how to take it in perspective and how to talk to the customer. You have to be honest, and this is where we built our success. We are known as being an honest company. It's very interesting because officially we don't have a sales team on the road. Not officially, we don't have a sales team on the road. I would say 95% of our business comes from referrals, and that's within the Jewish and non-Jewish market. We offer a dealership program. We offer a partnership program as well. So for instance, an IT company would come to us, they'll give us a lead, we sign them up as a dealer, and they get commission for that. So they get ongoing commission. So if it's a decent sized company with a 60-month contract that they've signed up for, they're getting a monthly commission on that. So it's a nice little earner for them. So that's something as well where we've diversified a bit and realized that it's not all about the salespeople on the road. It's not all about the cold calling. We don't do any of the cold calling at all. It's to do with a reputation, and we'll build that reputation over the years.
Well, that's really good segue into the question of networking. How you mentioned referrals, but how do you put any efforts into networking, whether it's online or offline, going to networking events, etc., and maybe even not social media? How much value would you place on that?
Okay, so networking is interesting. We have tried the likes of BNI. We tried that 3 or 4 years ago. We didn't find it was really for us. You really end up on BNI. Listen, it works for some companies. It didn't work for us. I found that you ended up selling other people's products rather than your own, and that's not what we're after. We go to network events, and it depends what you deem a network event as. If you're talking about 30, 40 people in a room for all different types of businesses, we don't do that type of networking. Our type of networking is going to expos. So for instance, I know we went to one recently whereby the expo was concentrating on EV, so electric vehicles. So when you've got these electric vehicles and you need to plug them in and they're in blocks of flats, they're in the offices, what do they need? They need Wi-Fi, they need broadband. So that was our way of networking in, talking to businesses, selling our products to a specific expert, to a specific sector. Do we do it often enough? Probably not. Do we plan to do it in 2023? Yes, it's in our plan for 2023 to do a lot more networking. Networking events as an expos, not necessarily the ones that are more traditionally like similar to BNI. When it comes to websites and social media, it's all important. Your website is like your front door. If you've got a front door which is all battered with smashed glass, nobody's going to go in through that front door and into that business. We don't sell online with Alphonica. RCUK do. They've got more of an e-commerce site. Ours is more informational. It's informational, and it's important to have that brand recognition as well. So when we rebranded as Alphonica, it took a lot of thought. Why Alphonica? Begins with the letter A, number one. So it's good for CEO. Phonica is for phones. So there was a lot of thought behind it. We're on LinkedIn. We've got our own marketing team. We've got our own design team. So they're constantly popping things on LinkedIn. When it comes to the like of, say, Instagram, things like that, it's not really our market. That's more RCUK, which is more for the retail. But LinkedIn we're quite successful on. We get a lot of good leads from there as well.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, moving more broadly, if you were to be sitting in front of someone who hasn't got a successful business in front of him, he wants to get into something, or she, what would you say as an advice coming from someone who has experience within the successful business? What would a person need in order to get a business off the ground?
I suppose the first thing is you've got to be very patient. You've got to have patience. You've got to realize that you've got to have a solid foundation. You've got to have faith in what you're selling. You need to have strategic planning in place. You need to know what your strengths are. You need to know what your weaknesses are. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and you need to build on your strengths and obviously not on your weaknesses. You need to do your market research. You need to know, if you are planning on going into selling shoes, for example, you need to know who your competition is. It's very important. You do that form of market research. You need to know, where you can sell your products. So research is key. Being patient is key. You need to, focus on your core strengths. You need to make sure you've got strategic planning in place, and you need to plan for the future as well. It's no good starting a business and saying, right, I'm going to start my business. I found some stock. I'm going to sell it on eBay. What's your plan? What's your plan for the next 2, 3, 4, even 5 years? How are you going to grow this business? There's no point being static. You need to plan for the future in order to grow, because without planning for the future, you've really got no hope. You need to make sure that whatever your model is, whatever your business model is, it's scalable. And it can be, if need be, a plan B. Can you diversify a bit from what you're originally selling? Because I don't think there's any business who really just concentrates on one specific product or one specific service.
It's interesting you mentioned market research, because I'm interested to hear what you have to say on that, because I've spoken to one or two people fairly recently, I don't know, a year or two ago, whatever it was. I had a certain business idea, and I said to them, how can I sort of see if this is workable? And he's like, look, he's someone whose opinion I respect. He said, you can't really know. I mean, you can go out there and gather data and all the rest of it, but ultimately you need to just develop the smallest possible way of being able to put this sort of out there, put it out there and see where it goes. I mean, what would you say to that sort of cavalier more approach?
It's more risk avert. If you're prepared to take a risk, then that could be a strategy. If you're not prepared to take such a risk and you want to be more, I suppose, more organized and more open to the elements whereby you know where you're going to be heading, then I do feel as though market research is really important. Listen, before we release anything in Alphonica, so if it's a new product or a new services or a new service that we're offering, or we're diversifying a bit on a new product or service, we will not release it to our core customer base at all until we've tested it in-house for at least 2 to 3 months. We need to make sure that the products that we are selling actually work. The worst thing you can do is try and sell something because it might be good or you might think it's good, and after 6 weeks the product doesn't work, or there's bugs in the system, because a lot of things what we do is obviously tech based. So it's really important that you do that market research to make sure that what you are selling actually says what it is on the tin. Otherwise, that in itself could be your downfall.
You mentioned you gained a lot from sort of internal mentorship, so to speak, from your boss. How important is it, generally speaking, for a person to have a business mentor?
So again, as I said, I don't have an outside business mentor, but to have somebody that you can speak to, somebody who knows your industry. So for instance, obviously my CEO, he's been in the business over 20 years. Somebody who you can relate to, somebody you can share your ideas with, and obviously get feedback, whether it's criticism, whether it's constructive criticism, or whether it's nah, that's not going to work. So, you're going to waste your time rolling that out. You need to hear that in order to be able to grow. So it's really important. You do need somebody, whether it's internal or external, because there's no point thinking that you can run with a business without talking it through with them, without talking it through to anybody else. You might think it's a fantastic idea. You speak it over with somebody, and they'll say, you know what, point A and B, great, it's going to work, but C and D, forget it. You need to rethink. So you do need to have that person who you can talk to, who you can trust, and who you can look up to.
You mentioned how much effort your company put into the branding of your company. So what is company branding, and how does a person go about branding their company or service?
Again, it's a lot of research that goes into it. I mean, we were in the fortunate position whereby we weren't starting per se a company from scratch. We had a solid, client base, but we just decided that we needed to split the B2C from the B2B. Knowing what was involved in the branding and getting in brand experts, the colors, the brand palettes, the primary colors, the secondary colors, making sure, what this actually looks like. What would it look like on a mobile phone? What would it look like on a website? What would it look like in print? Do the colors go? Do this colors, move into that color? The actual business name, is it catchy enough? Isn't it catchy enough? It's just really important, and it's worth spending the money and the time to get the right person to do it. I've got experience not just with business, but working within certain charities and helping charities out. One thing that you should not go cheap on is your branding, because your branding is your business. Your branding is telling the story. The branding is what sells you. So whether it's a business or whether it's a charity, it's absolutely imperative. You can tell the difference between, somebody who's copied and paste something off, Google, by typing in a business name and it comes up with a logo, or going to, somebody professional. Yes, it's going to cost a couple of £1,000s, but it's worth the investment.
And finally, in terms of the business, how important is it that you look after your clients? How do you look after your clients, your core customer base?
Okay, so again, we've got a system in place. We've got protocols in place. A customer, for example, so let's take it back to the beginning. A customer signs up with us. That will be dealt with the sales team. Then it moves over to the provisioning team. The provisioning team will get in touch with the client straight away, decide exactly what they want from if it's a phone system, what they want from their phone system. Then it goes and gets installed, and make sure straight after installation, we call up next day, make sure everything is okay. Then there's a follow-up call 2 weeks later. Then there's a follow-up call 6 weeks later. Then there's a follow-up 2 months later. And then once everything's settled, we would say every quarter we have an account manager who just touches base. We're not after selling anything. We're not going into to upsell or cross-sell. It's just literally a genuine call. Is everything okay? Then whenever the contract is due to expire, probably a month or so beforehand, we touch base with the clients, offer them re-signs. Hopefully they'll save a bit of money as well. But being in constant contact with your client is key. Clients do not like being ignored. They don't like, only being approached when there's an RPI rise, or there's potential to re-sign them in for another 36, 60 months. They want to feel as though they're being loved. And if they don't have that connection with you, then there's nothing stopping them looking elsewhere. Listen, there's very, very little loyalty nowadays anyway. People have got the right to, and they should look around. But you've got to do the most you can in order to ensure that that client is going to stay with you.
Moving into the final segment, just I'm conscious of the time. As a person working in a serious business environment and one that's been growing and is continuing to grow, how do you handle the work-life balance?
That's a very good question. That's my wife.
Yeah, different answer.
It's a good question. It's a serious question, and it's an important question to address. Listen, if you are in any, I suppose, managerial position, directorship position, it comes with putting a lot of time and a lot of effort into that business. You're not going to get that success working from 9 till 5. But you need to obviously take into consideration your family, which is paramount. It's absolutely important. So what I tend to do is I tend to get to the office early. Instead of coming to the office at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll get to the office at 7:45 in the morning. My boys are older, my children are older, my wife works. So I don't need to be at home at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock to get them out of school. I much prefer to get to the office at 7:45 and come home at 6:30, make sure we all eat together. It's really important. You all eat around the table together, not at separate times. You need to make sure that, weekends, your Sundays, you spend time with your family. They appreciate if you're open with them what is involved in, building a brand, building a company. But obviously they deserve the time with them, and you need to make sure that you give them that time, because it's just so important. Whether it's, as I said, sitting down together around the table every night for dinner, just having that conversation, not spending every hour tied to your computer, even if you do at night, so I'll do some extra work, but make sure you spend time with your wife, make sure you've spoke to your children, how was school, make sure you sat down with them, done homework with them, learned with them for a bit. And then if you put all these elements together, and then at 10 o'clock at night, you go back and do some work and answer some emails on your computer, it's not terrible. But you need to have that work-life balance. It's absolutely imperative.
Looking back at your whole career progression from whenever you started out till where you got to today, looking back, what would you do different, or would you do anything different if you started again?
I don't think I would do anything different. The way my career path has gone has been different. When I'll give you a brief overview. I left yeshiva. I was Whitefield Koilo for a while. Then I worked in the office in Whitefield Koilo. Then I had an opportunity to go into the finance industry, whereby I was traveling to London on a Sunday evening, and coming back on a Wednesday, Thursday night. And I was promised the world. It was for a Canadian company, an investment company called Edward Jones. And they said, yeah, within 6 months, only for 6 months, we'll set you an office up in Manchester. Don't worry about it. And it was a really, really good opportunity. But obviously, as time went by, I saw that the word sticking to the word, and being away from home as a young, recently married with young children, wasn't the best of things to do. After speaking to my Rob, we decided this wasn't the way to go. So, I ended up being a manager in Sheffield Mahadran for about 2-3 years. I was upstairs in the offices there doing all the ordering and etc. And then this opportunity came about. And the opportunity wasn't obviously coming in straight in the role that I'm on. My role was to start building up the business to business side of the business in a very, I suppose, low level way. Baruch Hashem, it's been successful, and I've progressed through the company, and I've got amazing occurrences to everybody involved.
Final question. What's the single
Yes,
piece of advice that you would give to other people starting out on a business career?
a single piece of advice is hard. I would go back to research. I would say research is absolutely imperative. Without doing the research of the product that you're planning to sell and planning to get involved in, then you're on for not being very successful, should we put it politely. You really, really need to do your research. You need to do your research on the product. You need to build a brand. Again, you can't have one single point because there's so many elements which bind everything together. So yes, your research, yes, your brand, depending on what you're selling, is social media the way forward? Is a website the way forward? Is an office the way forward? But to have that, I suppose to have that focus is very, very important, and you've got to be patient. Businesses, as the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day, and businesses aren't built overnight. You're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to have days or weeks or months where maybe you don't make it anything. But if you're patient and you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're selling and you believe in what you're doing, you'll be successful.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you for joining us at JCommerce today.
Thank you very much.